The Media Project.
Hey, all you Are We Here Yet fans. This is your host, Scott M. Graves, coming to you talking about our good friend Chuck Marohn and his organization, Strongtown. You know, Chuck has a new book coming out. It is on the 8th of September, 2021, and it is entitled Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. Focuses on the way we build roads, and in so doing, the way we build our communities. It is impactful, it is insightful, it is empowering for citizens, city council members, and other people looking for new ways to get what they need and change things in their cities and towns throughout the United States. Again, it is premiering on the 8th of September. You can pre-order it. You can also find out more about the book at www.confessions.engineer. And look for more information through the SMG's Are We Here Yet podcast and our website, smgravesassociates.com, for an event coming up, a live book event in relation to Confessions of a Recovering Engineer happening in our neck of the woods here in Springfield, Massachusetts on September 9th. There'll be more details coming out about that. You can always check Chuck and his crew's website at strongtowns.com, and they'll have plenty of information there about Confessions of a Recovering Engineer and a whole lot of other really important stuff if you care about urban planning, about the way we build our cities and towns, community development, and just a better way of interacting with each other. We hope to see you at a future event. We hope you'll read the book, and we hope you'll continuing to listen to Are We Here Yet podcast.
Excuse me, do you mind if I join you? Are you sure you don't mind? You're absolutely sure I'm going to stab you?
Now Roger is his name. Laughter is his cane. Come on, you dope, untie his rope and watch him go insane.
Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Mental Suppository. I'm Bret Herholtz.
I'm Andrew Shanley.
I'm Kevin Barbary.
And I'm Jamie Billings.
Before we begin, we have a new sponsor, and it happens to be a really big television show our listeners might want to see.
From executive producer Seth MacFarlane comes the return of an icon and beloved cartoon character.
Pluto.
Bye-bye.
Take that, Pluto.
Take that, bye-bye.
It's Seth MacFarlane's Popeye.
How are you going to start me, Popeye? By eating a can of spinach?
Nope, now I can eat a can of baked beans.
No.
It's from the creator of Family Guy. What did you expect? Citizen Kane? And yes, all the classic characters are back.
Look, Olive, Eugene the Jeep's magic tail is pointing to something.
That's not my tail. Oh, giggity, 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 giggity.
You best not be pointing at things at Olive's if you know what's good for you.
I'd gladly pay you Tuesday for that piece of ass.
Whippy, I'm disgustipated with you. Come along, sweet pea.
Just a moment, Captain Chinbutt. It's hard to move around in this thing. I mean, why the hell did you dress me in something that looks like a potato sack? When I load my diaper, it's like a sleeping bag full of crap!
Coming this fall, The Fox.
I think the project's been shelved.
Okay, not coming this fall, The Fox.
Oh, they've picked it up again.
Coming this fall, The Fox.
Never mind, they shelved it again.
Whatever, I'm out of here.
I am like no other, and I did your mother, says Popeye the Sailor Man. Ugh, 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 ugh. Well, blow me down.
And today we're talking with the man who created Roger Rabbit for the book Who Censored Roger Rabbit. And I always felt like if you've only seen the movie and you haven't read the book, you're only getting half the story. So we welcome today Gary K. Wolf. Thank you for appearing.
Hey, thanks. It's a pleasure being here. Full disclosure before we start. Bret was talking to me a while back and said to me, hey, is there anything in this interview that's off limits? And I told him that like talking about quantum physics and any mathematical equations named after people kind of always makes me feel inadequate.
Same here.
And also, talking about the comet that killed the dinosaurs makes me sad and kind of fills me with foreboding.
Yeah.
So if anybody is tuning in expecting to hear me talk about those, you might as well go away because I'm not gonna.
That's it.
but-
Okay, fine. I'm out of here.
Personally, I think that this kind of Earth is kind of overdue for another comet hitting it, but you know, that's just me.
But I did say that any topic was on limits, including boxers or briefs.
Okay. And are
And
you
in
boxers
fact,
or
I
briefs?
hope somebody asked that question.
And are you boxers or
But-
briefs?
What?
Are you boxers or briefs?
Actually, boxers and briefs.
Oh,
both
you
at the same time. Sometimes boxers on top, briefs underneath. Sometimes briefs on top.
Double brief it. I
It's always
understand.
good to have a
double
bag.
brief.
You're like double
Yeah, either
masking.
way.
You're double briefing. Well, you know, when you go to, if you go to have a romantic moment, you take off the outer layer and you feel like an animal. It's a,
I'm not even going to go there.
Well, it's funny. I was kind of late to the game reading Who Censored Roger Rabbit, but it was always one I noticed when reading the credits, and that kind of confused me as a kid because it's like, why doesn't it have the same name as the movie? Not realizing that movie companies tend to change properties as they acquire them. But I mean, the original book is it's such a great story, and I found
very
it was
different
It's
from
different.
the
and
movie.
It's a bit darker, and I like the fact that it was actually comic strip characters in the book that talked in speech balloons, and I just found that to be really fascinating.
Sure. You have to realize what goes on when you transition a book into a movie. I wrote Who Censored Roger Rabbit to be the best book that I was capable of writing, and it probably is. I've written 2 Roger sequels, and they come pretty close, but I will probably never surpass Who Censored Roger Rabbit. It is just, it's a brilliant book. And when I was writing it, I wrote it for people to read. And so as you read it, the reader is forced to use his or her imagination. And that's not as hard as I make it sound. I mean, I lead you right into it, and you can visualize these things. You can see them. Like the cartoon, the characters in the book are characters from comic strips and comic books. And I chose them because I had a convention that I wanted to use. They speak in word balloons. So when a human is speaking to a comic character in my book, the human doesn't speak to them or hear them. The human speaks to them, but they when they speak back, they put up a word balloon.
Right.
And the human has to read the word balloon. And if the comic character turns around, then the word balloon turns around with him, and you have to run around to the other side, or either that or learn to read in reverse. And if somebody gets shot with a cartoon gun, it produces a bang balloon, and that bang balloon kind of turns brittle and lands on the floor. And you collect that bang balloon, and you can then, if you find the gun that was used as the weapon, you produce another bang balloon. And if the 2 bang balloons match, well, that's the gun. And I had a lot of fun.
Well thought.
yeah, I mean
playing with that convention.
That is brilliant, and obviously I can see why they would have to change it for movies.
Sounds like a CSI episode.
In terms of movie concepts, they tried doing that early on. They said, well, hey, we're going to have the word balloons. And it became obvious to one and all really early on that was impractical.
Yeah.
Because a cartoon character would speak and put up a word balloon, and the action would stop while the audience read the word balloons, like watching a silent movie.
Right.
So that was a convention that had to go, and I can understand that. The story in the book, as you guys, you guys have read the book, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like it's you guys and my mother and my 5 aunts, and that's my entire reading public. So the story in the book is much darker. It's a much more adult, and not that the movie
like
isn't an adult movie.
For cartoons.
Yes, yeah, exactly right, and it's much darker. And when Disney came to me and said, "Hey, we want to make your book into a movie," I knew that the story would change because it was going to be a Disney movie. I was hoping that they weren't going to totally Disneyfy it, which they didn't. It's still a dark, kind of brooding movie, but it's not as dark as the book. And they changed the story. Fine with me. I mean, the story is the story. My story is my story. Their story is their story. What they didn't change was the most important thing. They didn't change. They didn't change the concept of a human beings living in this case cartoon world, and they didn't change the characters. I've still got Eddie Valiant. I've got Jessica. I've got Baby Herman. I've got Roger Rabbit, and they could just as easily have changed Roger Rabbit to Ricky Raccoon and or whatever, but they didn't. So they left the most important parts of the book there, and also the structure of the title, Who Roger Rabbit. So mine was Who Censored, and I used censored because these were comic strip and comic book characters, and it seemed more appropriate for them to be censored. They used framed for two reasons, actually. They didn't want to use censored because they were afraid that audiences might think it was an X-rated movie. And secondly, with Jessica, it could well have been, if things had just gone in a slightly different direction. And they also thought that framed worked better for characters who were movie characters, cartoon characters.
The other thing is they actually kept in the line from the book where Jessica says, "I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way." And I'm glad they kept that. That's a great line.
That's actually my second favorite line from the book. My first line from the book is Baby Herman, who says, "I've got a 50-year-old lust and a 3-year-old dinky." I mean, and they kept that one. They kept that one too. But that one is actually my favorite line, although the "I'm not bad, I just draw that way" gets more play because Jessica gets more play than Baby Herman. But they kept a lot of the lines I wrote are in there. But I got to tell you, when we were making this movie, and they let me participate as much or as little as I wanted because Steve Spielberg and Bob Zemeckis had both read the book when it came out, and they both admired my talent. They both really liked the book, and they both thought I could bring a lot to the party. So they let me participate as much as little as I wanted. And I would sometimes find myself in a room with 35 of the most talented and creative people I'd ever met in my life, and these people are all throwing out ideas on how to make my book and my story funnier. And I'm thinking to myself, where were you people when I was writing this thing at my kitchen table,
or
between 4 and 7 in the morning every day. If I'd had those 35 people with me, I'd have had a Pulitzer Prize, So I think they took I'm not modest. I think they took a really, really good book, and I think they made it into a really, really exceptional movie.
Oh yeah.
And it's the kind of book that now, and I'm not. This would be great for you if they did. They could actually go back and make it the way the book was done, and do a series out of it, and do it the way that the book was written, and it would take them like a quarter of the amount of money it took them to make the original now, because the technology has come so far.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it could. I go round and round about it. I was actually just looking at one of Eric Goldberg. He was the director of the third Roger Rabbit cartoon, and he was slated at one point to be the director of the second Roger Rabbit movie. He did a test with Roger as a digital CGI character, like a Pixar character, and it doesn't really work.
I don't think it would.
I think part of the charm of Roger Rabbit is the 2D. Kind of old style flat animation.
Yeah.
Although you can now do that digitally too. I mean, you can come pretty close to making a digital movie look like an old 1930s, 1940s cartoon. So yeah, it would not be half the cost. In fact, I would be happy if the sequel movie were twice the cost. I'm thinking it would probably be closer.
Well,
to
I mean, at the
that.
time when that movie was made, it was what was it? 70? It was like $70 million to make that movie.
75 million, yeah.
75 million.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
like,
and I give Jeff Katzenberg. You know, Steve Spielberg was the spark plug. If Steve Spielberg had not come on board as producer, who knows? Because nobody at Disney could really get this thing off the ground until Steve Spielberg came along.
Yeah, and he had all those cross licenses you had to get approved for the characters they threw in there in Toontown. Like that's amazing that was ever done.
Yeah, well, as an example, in 1981, Roy Disney went to Warner Brothers and said, "Hey, we're making this live-action animated movie. It's going to have cartoon characters and human beings, and we'd like to have Bugs Bunny come out and do a cameo." The Bugs Bunny comes out and he's going to say, "What's up, Doc?" And he's going to bite a carrot and he's going to walk off. And how about that? And Warner Brothers said to Roy Disney, get lost.
Yeah.
Get lost. There's no way that Bugs Bunny is ever going to appear in a Walt Disney movie. It's never going to happen. So 5 years later, Steve Spielberg goes in and makes the identical request. Can we use Bugs Bunny? Hey, come on, what's up, Doc? And he eats a carrot. And Warner Brothers says, "Of course." Of course.
Yeah.
So what about Porky Pig? What about Wile E. Coyote? What about the Roadrunner? What about Sylvester and Tweety Bird? Yosemite Sam, here, take them all.
I think
And
Sylvester had one of the great lines in it. He got away with a dirty joke too. At the end, when they were saying, about Judge Doom, he's not a rabbit, not a duck, and he goes, "Or a pussy."
Oh, or a pussy.
Yeah.
One of the things that always blew me away was obviously it was one of the first times we ever saw like live action and cartoon together. Is just the interactivity. Like some of the special effects were really blew me away.
Yeah.
Was like just that special effect where Jessica is kind of coming on to Eddie Vaniel, and she's like doing that thing with the tie. That must have, that was like the first time they were making big deals about like how the interactivity
and all the robotics they had to build, and
oddly, it a lot of people think it was the first time that cartoons and humans interacted, but it goes way, way, way back. I mean, it goes all the way back to in the Inkwell with Max Fleischer, where he had Coco the Clown popping up out of the Inkwell.
Or Disney doing the Alice films.
Yeah.
Yeah, Walt Disney did an Alice in Wonderland that was a little girl in an animated world back in the 30s.
Yeah. And, wasn't there also a Porky Pig live action?
Yes, with him and Daffy Duck talking to Leanne Schlesinger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Bob Hoskins as Eddie Valiant, if you had to, I mean, obviously, the whole product, it's an amazing thing. What was your impression of when Bob Hoskins is Eddie Valiant?
That's kind of bittersweet for you to ask me that, because when it came time to pick Eddie Valiant, everybody wanted Harrison Ford. I wanted Harrison Ford. I mean, he would have been sensational. And when they went to Harrison Ford, he said, "How long is it going to take?" They said 4 years. He said, "Nah, I can't do that." So the next choice was Paul Newman. And same deal. Paul Newman couldn't do it.
Really?
So so they went out looking for an A-list actor, because nobody really thought that that this movie was going to succeed based on the premise or on the technique. They felt they needed an A-list actor to fill the seats. Somebody that they would come in and see. So they found. They found the perfect Eddie. They found the perfect Eddie Valiant, and that, of course, was Bill Murray.
Yep.
So they put Bill Murray on, and it became obvious really quickly that Bill Murray could not pull this off. He didn't believe the rabbit was real, so he couldn't possibly make the audiences believe. He would look at the rabbit with an expression like, "You're a talking rabbit." So, they fired him. They gave him $1 million to buy out his contract.
Wow.
And they kept looking, and they finally found the perfect Eddie Valiant. And that, of course, was Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy had a black Eddie Valiant.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and so
I didn't hear that
after,
in any of the
after 2
research
weeks
I've done. That's
after,
fantastic.
After 2 weeks of filming with Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy wanted the script rewritten because he wanted to be funnier than the Toons.
Okay, I'll give him that.
So that wasn't working.
Wow.
So Eddie Murphy got bought out of his contract for $1 million, and he got a Ferrari. So you start to see how you make money in Hollywood. You never work
by not working.
So they started looking at other people. They looked at Kurt Russell, James Woods, who would have been a disaster.
James Woods, oh my God.
Yeah, Bill Peterson. I think he's done CSI.
CSI.
And I think he would have done it. And they finally said, "Hey, come in and look at this guy we got coming in, Bob Hoskins." And I thought, Hoskins? And I had just watched Mona Lisa.
Oh, great movie.
And actually, I just by sheer coincidence, I just watched it again last night. And Bob Hoskins is an incredible actor, just unbelievable. He doesn't just act with words and body. I mean, when you look at his face, his eyebrows act.
Yeah, it's the big eyebrows.
It's like two little caterpillars up there in his eyebrows and things. And
he usually plays like a
so
British
I said,
thug.
I said, fantastic guy, but my God, he's got this Cockney. He's not just a British accent; it's a Cockney accent. Mm-hmm. And Eddie Valiant is the prototypical American private eye. He's never going to pull this off. So I went in when he did the reading, and he did the reading, perfect American accent, perfect.
That's what got me. I didn't realize he was British when I first saw the film until I saw interviews later.
He was the only one of all the people that I saw audition who actually made you believe that the rabbit was real. I mean, and this is first reading. He made you believe that rabbit was real. The job that Bob Hoskins did in that movie was incredible.
From what I heard, he put in a lot of mental work into it, where it almost strained him even after filming, where he was still seeing cartoon characters as he was walking about the street.
Well, and think about all the persons, Gary, think about all the people you just mentioned that had the part and left the part. I can't see any of them portraying someone who drinks too much and pulling it off the way Bob Hoskins did.
I mean, honestly, one of the best parts about Bob Hoskins in his career is that he really kind of represents that every guy kind of reality.
Yeah.
And so
really
you want to
does.
see a broken down private eye. Harrison Ford can't do that.
No.
Eddie Murphy can't do that.
No.
All the other people you've mentioned, obviously they can't do that. I mean, but...
Yeah, and realistically, the reason they wanted a Harrison Ford or a Paul Newman was because they felt they needed an A-list actor to bring people in. And Bob Hoskins, for as talented as an actor as he was not an A-list actor and was not going to fill any seats because nobody knew who he was. And if they did know who he was, they said, oh, my God, he's a British guy. This is going to be some kind of foreign film. But when he was thrown out of the Ink and Paint Club, when the gorilla threw him out, he landed. He was on wires, but in order to get the thud, they dropped him at the end, and he really landed on those whatever boxes.
Right, there's a lot of physicality that he went through.
He broke 3 ribs?
He broke 3 ribs, and we thought, oh, my God, that's it. That filming is going to have to stop for 6 months while Bob heals up. Came into work the next day, taped up, ready to go.
I thought you were going to say, oh, my God, imagine if this was Harrison Ford that just broke 3 ribs. Cha-ching!
He just did break 3 ribs,
I think Harrison Ford might have had a stunt double, but I probably would have been Harrison Ford's stunt double. When we look alike.
I like the fact that Bob Hoskins...
No, we really don't look alike. Don't come looking for it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like the fact that Bob Hoskins was like the opposite of a Bogart, who was only actually 5'7" himself, but at the same time, he was like this little stocky spark plug of a guy rather than being like a 6'1", the sort of the grizzled private eye you'd expect for like Eddie Valiant.
He's a fun-sized version of Danny DeVito.
Back then in the
Danny DeVito in the fun size. He and I spent a lot of time hanging out when he came to Boston to film Mermaid, and I got to know him pretty well. He promotes himself as this working class stiff, and he tells a story about how he got his first acting job because he was in, I don't know, a pub or something, and there were guys going upstairs, and he thought they were going upstairs because there was a hooker up there. And so he went upstairs, and they handed him the script and told him to start reading, and it turned out it was an audition for a movie. And so he read the script and got the part. And he said, I'd never been in anything before in my life, and I just got it because I wanted to get laid, and I said I could win a well, that was a good story. That was a good story. But Bob was actually a classically trained Shakespearean actor.
That's insane.
Had gone to acting school for years, and to perfect his craft. He took an entire class on facial expression, on how to move your mouth, your nose, your ears, and your eyebrows to put out an emotion. So that was a pretty good story, and I hate to tell stories about him after he's gone, but he was really the top of his craft, and he will. It will always be my Eddie Valiant.
I really can't think of anyone else being Eddie Valiant. Honestly, he put himself really into that role so much,
and especially like during the scenes where he was arguing with Roger, like they're having like
he put in such a believability, even though he's acting against nothing. Well, he's acting against.
You told me you can get out of those cuffs at any time.
Yes. And him controlling the cuffs himself.
The cuffs were on springs, and so Bob had to remember where his hand was,
right,
and what the orientation of his hand was in relation to the rabbit's hand, because when he moved his hand, the cuffs moved, and he was also moving Roger's hand. The other thing, it's a small thing, but it's significant. He had to remember that when he picked the rabbit up, he had to pick the rabbit up with his fingers closed, not his fingers open. Because if he picked him up with his fingers open, it added $100,000 a minute to the animation time.
Oh, wow.
Animation expense, yeah.
So there were other things that the directors were calling on for him to do just because they were like, nope, that's going to cost more money.
That's amazing.
Well, the money. That's why I want to get back to Jeff Katzenberg, because Steve Spielberg takes a lot of the credit, and rightfully so. Bob C. takes a lot of the credit, and rightfully so. But I give the credit to Jeff Katzenberg, because when Michael Eisner brought Jeff in to head up the motion picture and the animation department, he said, "Hey, we've got to make this Roger Rabbit movie." And Jeff had just written what was called the Katzenberg memo, which was, what gets studios into trouble is going for the home run. He said that everybody wants to go for the home run. He says, I'm gonna be happy with the single and the occasional double. I am never going to spend more than $14 million on a movie. That was a famous Katzenberg memo, famous. So the first production meeting for Roger Rabbit, Bob Watts, who was the line producer, said, well, my preliminary budget is $35 million. But it's probably going to go to 40. And this is after Katzenberg had just said, I'm not going to spend more than $14 million. And Katzenberg did not blink an eye. He said, okay, just make sure that every dollar shows on screen, and make sure it's worth it, and make sure it's good.
That's
actually... And the budget kept going up. I mean, it wound up at $75 million.
Yeah.
And that's 75 declared. There was probably a lot of money that... plus another $75 million to advertise it.
Mm-hmm.
And Katzenberg didn't blink an eye.
That's actually really
right up to the premiere, when really that movie came out, and nobody, even when it came out, when it premiered at Radio City Music Hall, nobody knew if that was going to be a children's movie or an adult movie. And nobody knew if it was going to be an Academy Award winner or Howard the Duck. I mean,
but that's reminiscent of
we kind of knew it wasn't going to be Howard the Duck. But
when you heard like movies like back in the '80s, a lot of studios were taking risks. They were taking a chance on properties, and Steven Spielberg especially was one of those types of people who would take a chance on a property like Back to the Future or E.T. or something like that.
Absolutely.
Something out of the wheelhouse of everybody else. And that was kind of the spirit that kind of inspired the 80s, that kind of inspired the movies of the 80s that made them great.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why they still resonate. That's the reason why Roger Rabbit still resonates and all these other properties from the 80s. And that's why people keep going back to them.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's part of the problem with the movie industry today. Nobody takes a risk.
Mm-hmm.
If I never see another Marvel superhero movie, it'll be too soon. If I never see Vin Diesel blow up another car,
oh boy.
it'll be too soon.
Hey Gary, I'm curious in the contracts that Eddie Murphy and the other person who was paid $1 million to leave, who was it?
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
What happened to that footage? Is it in their contract? It can never be seen.
It's probably in the Disney Vault. But look, I'll tell you something else. Okay, so when they were looking for, when Murphy was gone and Bill Murray was gone, they were looking for other people. Bob Hoskins was working. He was working for Brian De Palma, making The Untouchables. He was Al Capone. Yep. But Brian De Palma he really wanted Bobby De Niro for Al Capone. But Bobby De Niro was unavailable. So Hoskins was starring in The Untouchables.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, Bobby De Niro comes back and says, "Hey, guess what? I finished early. I can do it." So Bob Hoskins gets fired. And so now he's got $1 million and nothing to do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's karma, and a little bit of it's karma, because had not that worked out, Bob Hoskins would have been Al Capone and may well have won a Best Supporting Actor. People say, "Were you happy with the movie?" And I was overjoyed. And I say, "Well, do you have any regrets?" And I do. I have one regret, and my one regret is that Bob Hoskins, who did the most incredible job of acting that I have ever seen any human being do, was not even nominated for an Academy Award for that performance. I think the reason was he made it look so easy that nobody knew how hard it really was to stand there on an empty set with nothing, and make it all up in your head and make people believe it.
Well, Stanislavski said, there is no such thing as a small part. There are, however, small actors. And Bob Hoskins is definitely not a small actor. He never was. And just the body work he left behind, especially in that film, resonates today even.
Like I said, I just watched Mona Lisa last night. I have a Peloton, and I ride my bike for an hour a day, and while I ride it, instead of listening to some guy tell me to ride faster, I watch movies. And I've been doing my own private Bob Hoskins film festival. I watch Mermaids, and I watch Mona Lisa, and the Long Good Friday.
He was in Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Yeah, The Wall.
Long Good Friday.
Mario Brothers.
Shut up, Andrew.
Get out of the room.
We all have our ups and downs.
Exactly.
Bob Hoskins once told me, because he was in some not so good movies, and I said, "Bob, you are such a fantastic actor. You can have your choice of roles." He says, "I got 7 kids." He says, "I got 7 kids. I got 6 nannies. I got a chauffeur. I got a wife." He said, "If somebody says to me, 'Hey, do you want to be in this piece of crap and I'll give you $3 million?' Absolutely."
Absolutely.
Well said.
Absolutely. And he got that from Michael Caine. He and Michael Caine hung out at Mona Lisa wasn't their first movie together. They'd been in one before. And Michael Caine's philosophy was exactly the same. And if you look at Michael Caine's career, there are 2 Michael Caine tracks. There's the incredible Michael Caine, and then there's the do anything for a buck Michael Caine.
The silly
stuff, yeah. Michael Caine had the same philosophy and passed that on to Bob Hoskins.
Yeah. I believe the year he won the Oscar for Educating Rita, he wasn't there to accept it because he was filming Jaws the Revenge or whatever.
Jaws 4, yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, it's a paycheck. Well, I'm going to go up there and accept a statue, or I can make another $20 million.
Yeah,
I'm filming a film with a shark. It's a very large shark.
They're going to substitute the shark. The shark's going to make a sound that sounds like a lion and a gunshot going off, even though sharks don't make any sounds. You're getting an Oscar tonight. I know, but you have to listen to this. So
I think we could shoot the Roger Rabbit sequel right here and use you guys for all the voices. To save a ton of money, we'll use shadow puppets and.
There you
the
go.
other thing about Roger Rabbit was the
And
voice
no
acting.
CG.
It's one of these things. I feel like Roger Rabbit's a film that could probably be done today, but it wouldn't have the same effect because you think about the people that were still alive at the time when, like Mel Blanc.
Yeah.
It gave a feeling of authenticity to the history of animation, and he was.
This was his last project. This was the last thing he did. He died shortly after the movie came out.
It was definitely in a time when special effects were really special.
Yeah.
By meaning that it took a huge team of people to actually
A lot
make
of creativity.
The effect work. You take a look at like a lot of the model makers and a lot of the puppeteers and a lot of the robotics people. I mean, even other films like Short Circuit or Empire Strikes Back or any of the other major huge
Howard the Duck.
blockbusters. Howard the Duck, there you go. It required teams of people to actually create the effect to make it look believable on camera. And, the involvement, especially with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, if you made it today, obviously it would be CG, it would be somebody in the box, with a computer system, it'd be rendered and all this other stuff. You wouldn't have that same...
Yeah, I think it's a function... I agree in general, but I think it's a function of creativity.
Absolutely.
I think the thing that made Roger Rabbit special was it was a perfect storm of creative talent.
Yes.
Right. How are we going to do this in this scene?
Yeah, the right producer, the right director, the right studio, everything in it was right. It just fit together. And I think that if you could capture that lightning in a bottle again and get the right people together, admittedly not easy to do, but doable. I think you could do it. I just watched another movie, Pokemon, Inspector Pikachu.
Oh, yeah.
And
yes.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but better than it sounds, funny, witty, kind of adult.
It's got Deadpool as Pikachu.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's possible. I think it's possible to do it again. It's going to be expensive, and I mean, do people remember Roger Rabbit? Yeah, I think they do.
Oh yeah. It was a bridge movie.
It was a groundbreaking film.
I think I felt like it bridged between like the golden age of animation and the animation that came with like stuff like Tiny Toon Adventures and Animaniacs and all the animations that came in the 1990s. It really sort of re-energized. It saved Walt Disney Animation because at that point I think they almost killed themselves doing stuff like Black Cauldron, which was not a bad film, but
the Black Cauldron, which fell down the black hole.
Another Disney film.
Yep.
And joined. But I don't know. Herbie the Volkswagen down there. Huh? Yeah, Disney when they bought the rights to this were making movies that were destined to be the second half of a double feature, and shortly after there were no more double features. So what was Disney going to do? And it pretty well accepted that Roger Rabbit did not just save Disney, but catapulted them back into the front ranks of movie studio. They made them the top movie studio again.
That, and they were just great characters. Roger Rabbit, Baby Herman, Jessica Rabbit. They were just Benny the Cab. They were just fun characters.
Yeah. If you guys follow my website, my Facebook page, Gary K. Wolf on Facebook, you'll see that every day I post pictures of. I do a lot of fan art because
I've seen that.
I am not like other guys who have created iconic characters. I encourage people to take liberties with my characters as long as it's acceptable and PG rated. PG-13, no pornography. But I encourage people to, look at Jessica and make her their own, make her look a little
Jessica
different than she did.
On your site.
Yes.
Yeah, and I get a lot of young women and older women and guys.
You get a lot of young women, Gary? Well, good for you.
Well, you see that's where the creative guy's thoughts differ from the writer's. I have an entirely different concept of that. But anyway, I see a lot of pictures. I get a lot of pictures of people cosplaying Jessica, and I post them all because I think it takes a lot of courage to play Jessica, and the best Jessica cosplayers aren't necessarily the ones that have the Jessica shape. They're the ones that have the Jessica attitude.
The confidence.
Because Jessica is an attitude and a state of mind. And that's what it takes to cosplay Jessica. But she's a perfect character to cosplay because young women who are a little buxom, who, couldn't cosplay Wonder Woman, can easily cosplay Jessica. And, that's great. I have a lot of artists who send me fan art. And they are all obviously Jessica, although the faces of them don't look like Jessica. But that's okay, because I think Jessica is more of an idea and an ideal than someone who is strictly on model. So I post them all, and if you follow me on Facebook, you will someday see probably, because I get a lot of Facebook friends who criticize some of the cosplayers. She's too fat. What's she doing playing Jessica?
Oh, God, no.
Or Jessica's white. What's a black woman doing playing Jessica? Or the biggie is, hey, what's a guy doing cosplaying Jessica? And I used to give these people a warning. I'd fire a warning and say, hey, don't do it again. But that's over now. One strike and you're out. Anybody who criticizes a cosplayer on my Facebook page is blocked and banned for life.
Good.
Did you reply to the person who said this person is black, they can't be Jessica Rabbit? Did you comment who framed Roger racist?
No, I didn't go there. And you can go to my site and probably see it. No, I took the high ground and I just
I
blocked
see.
them.
I'm the low ground, Gary. Thanks a lot.
Blocked them, kicked them off, and I did this long diatribe about how the rainbow-colored Toontown tent is big enough to encompass one and all, and as the Lord High Almighty Poobah of Toontown, I make the rules, and if you don't like my rules, go live someplace with other rules.
Piss off.
I'm just imagining like that scene from the end of Spartacus where all these Jessica Rabbit cosplayers are standing up. I'm Jessica Rabbit. I'm Jessica Rabbit. I'm Jessica Rabbit.
No, I'm Jessica Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit.
I'm Jessica Rabbit.
No.
So
actually, it's funny you mentioned it. The development of Jessica Rabbit.
Wait a minute. Before you go on, I was just in Starbucks. You guys are hitting all my buttons here, and this actually happened like not 2 days ago. I was in Starbucks. And I was waiting for my order to come up, and the barista came up with a venti latte and says, "I have a latte for Spartacus." And the guy says, "I am Spartacus." Another guy says, "No, I am Spartacus."
That's great.
No, I am Spartacus.
That's awesome.
Wow. I'm going to do that from now on when I go to Starbucks.
Why the heck not? But I ended up actually watching some of the earlier clips because it sounded like Who Censored Roger Rabbit was almost immediately optioned as a movie, and they had like a clip from 1983 with Paul Rubens doing the voice of Roger Rabbit with a character design that looked it looked different from what eventually came out, and that went with Jessica Rabbit too, who in the original character design she looked more like
she was more scary.
She looked more like Lauren Bacall or Katharine Hepburn rather than Veronica Lake, and I just found that fascinating.
Yeah, it was a long and involved process. I sold the book in 1980, and the book actually didn't come out until 1981 because I sold the book to who did I sell it to? Villard? I can't remember. But I sold the book, and because of the publishing lag, it took a year for the book to come out. And in that period of time, somebody at the publisher sent a copy of the manuscript to Disney, and it worked its way up the chain and got to Roy Disney. And I got a call one day from some guy. It was on my home phone, and he said, "Hey, is this Gary K. Wolf?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "This is Roy Disney." I said, "Yeah, right." Roy Disney calling me at home. That's going to happen. And he said, "No, it's really Roy Disney." And I wondered if you'd be interested in having Disney make your book into a movie. Yeah, right. That's good. The book hasn't even come out yet.
Pull the other one.
No, we read the manuscript. So, of course, they offered me more money than I'd ever made for everything I'd written put together. So, I actually, if you guys have read the book, I didn't think the book was filmable. I didn't think there was any way that anybody could film that book because it was just so introspective and required so much imagination that I didn't think it could be done. But I was willing to let them try. And for the first 5 years, from 1980 to 1985, they pretty much proved that the book wasn't filmable. They tried all kinds of different approaches. All kinds of techniques.
Well, there was
Paul
a detective
Rubens,
in it who was a toon, who was like a rival to Eddie Valiant in the book, wasn't there?
I'm sorry, say it again?
The police sergeant.
The police sergeant who was a toon, who was a rival to Eddie Valiant, because I think they tried to animate him in one of the versions.
they tried so many things, and none of it really worked. At one point, they came to me, Roy Disney came to me and said, "Look, we're not having any luck with this animated live action thing. What would you say if we, instead of having the cartoon characters as cartoons, they were costume characters like they are at Disneyland?" And I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, I'm going to have Fred McMurray as Eddie Valiant. I'm going to have Haley Mills as Jessica, Dean Jones as the Rabbit, and Kurt Russell as Baby Herman.
And Buddy Hack and Mickey Rooney, too.
Yeah, and I said, don't you think that compromises the concept just a little bit? Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, it went through all kinds of iterations, and it's a roller coaster. It was going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. And then Michael Eisner came in, brought Jeff Katzenberg. They brought in Steve Spielberg, and from that point on, nobody looked back.
Honestly, back then, that was when studios were willing to take a risk, like you said before. I can't see a studio executive or somebody in a suit at a studio sticking with something like this as long as they did to really kind of push this and make this happen. And especially with how much they paid other actors that weren't working, and just keep going. We're paying $1 million to this guy, $1 million to that guy.
Not only that, loaning out the characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Droopy.
And just sticking with it. It's just an example of just how much and how dedicated the studio was to that production. And then when it finally did get finished, it was not just a success. It was
that's what I'm telling you. Perfect storm. It was a perfect storm of top level management at the studio, Eisner and Katzenberg, top level producers, Spielberg, top level director, top level actors.
Great animator, Richard Williams.
Yeah. It was just perfect storm. I'll tell you one interesting story about when Steven got Bugs Bunny. He got all the characters. He had to pay for them, but it was ridiculously cheap. A couple of $1,000 per character.
Wow.
Ridiculous. Except for Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny was a superstar, and he had a contract. And his contract specified that he had to be in every scene with Mickey Mouse. You could not have Mickey Mouse in a scene alone.
Right.
Bugs had to be in every scene with Mickey Mouse.
Time. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and they had to have the exact same number of words of dialogue. Okay? And if you watch the movie on video, you will see they're in every scene together, and they have the exact same amount of words of dialogue. You can count it up. But the Disney animators were really pissed at Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers wanted, and I just found this out just very recently. I didn't realize this, but Warner Brothers wanted their characters to be the 1980 characters.
That's right.
Oh.
And the Disney people wanted the characters to be the 1930s, 1940s.
Which makes more sense.
Characters.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Well, of course, but Warner Brothers said, hey, we're letting you use our characters. We want them to be the 80s characters. So one of the animators who was responsible for doing the Warner's characters did two versions. He did a version with the 30s, 40s characters, and he did a version with the 80s characters. And he showed the 80s characters version to Warner Brothers, and they used the 30s, 40s characters in the movie. And when the movie came out, Warner Brothers was furious. Oh my God, it's not the characters that we said you could use. But it turned out that the movie was such a huge success that they suddenly got demand for, dolls and backpacks and T-shirts with the 30s, 40s characters too. So they basically doubled their merchandising revenue.
But it makes more sense for them to use the 30s, 40s characters because it's a period piece.
It's a period, yeah. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. However, what happened to that animator who did it? Well, he got fired.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. So the movie had a happy ending, but the animator did not.
Oh.
I'll tell you one other little story. There's something called gags in the margins. Film goes through a projector at 24 frames a second, and so you have to do 24 drawings or cells in order to match up with live action. And animators discovered really early on in animation, way back in the Gertie the Dinosaur days, that they could screw around with 6 of those frames and put in little gags, little sight gags, and the human eye couldn't see it. So this goes all the way back. In every Betty Boop movie, when Betty Boop goes boop boop be doop, the front of her dress falls down, and she's topless for 6 frames, and she puts it back up. I mean, it's classic Betty Boop, and it's in the Roger Rabbit movie too. But they wanted to put a gag in the margin to ding Warner Brothers. All right, so what they wanted to do was when Bugs and Mickey were parachuting down with Eddie Valiant, they wanted for 6 frames for Mickey to give Bugs the finger. All right?
Really?
Now,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So fine. Kind of funny gag. The animators that Dick Williams was using in the London studio, they were a motley mix of animators who had come over from Iron Curtain countries, really talented people who couldn't work in the Iron Curtain countries anymore. They came over to England, and Bob hired them, and they went to working on Roger Rabbit. But it was like a Tower of Babel. And in order to speak to the Ukrainian guy, you had to first speak to the Greek guy, who would speak to the Spanish guy, who would speak to the French guy, who would speak to the Ukrainian guy, and then they would go all the way back around. So it was a Ukrainian guy who was doing that particular scene, right? And so they conveyed to him, hey, Mickey gives Bugs the finger. Well, it got lost in translation, and if you watch it now, and you will see that it is Bugs who gives Mickey the finger.
Whoops! It is right when right when Bugs is saying, "Ain't I a stinker?"
Ain't I a stinker?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gives Mickey the finger, and it was supposed to be, "Ain't I a stinker?" Mickey giving Bugs the finger. So we got our fingers crossed.
I never knew about that until yesterday. Actually.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I was like, and I grew up with that movie.
There's a lot of stories, a lot of stuff that, we kind of miss out on as kids, Even there are multiple viewings of that. We don't look for the little details like that.
Well, also, when that movie came out, being as young as we were, we didn't understand a lot of things.
Yeah.
We understood Jessica Rabbit.
Well, so we understood Jessica Rabbit pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. That's what made the movie so great, and it continues to. When it came out, and I would go to autographing shows. My fans were generally, 30s, 40s, 50s, and then some younger. And then as the younger people started having children, and the video disc came out, they started using that as a babysitter. And so, their kids grew up watching Roger Rabbit on DVD, and now Roger Rabbit is on Disney Plus.
Yep.
And so they're using it as a babysitter again.
Yep.
And when I go to autographing shows now, my fan base is I get kids as young as 8, and I get people older than I am.
Yeah.
So it's a interesting phenomenon.
There's still scenes that get me in the movie. I mean, my favorite scene is still the Ink and Paint Club. The thing between Donald and Daffy Duck, and the other one was when Eddie's looking through the photos, and then he's going through the photos of them and Catalina, and it just like the moment he comes across the photo of his brother, and it's just that scene always kind of gets me, and it's like Bob Hoskins' performance. It's always one of those scenes that
you
just
really
like,
pulled that heartfelt
yeah,
moment
really,
when it came out.
True
acting.
That scene where I can't remember who's flipping the photos of Jessica and Marvin Acme, Roger, and he's flipping it. And it's animated.
When I saw that in the theaters, the whole theater erupted because they got the gag of the flip book, and it was just like.
Yeah, the interesting thing, if you watch that freeze frame, you'll see that the Jessica that he's flipping is the original Jessica from like 1983.
Really? I'll have to watch that again.
It's the old Jessica.
Oh, because you can see that the eyes look different.
Yeah,
you're right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a totally different looking woman. But the other thing that nobody ever picks up on is, of course, Kathleen Turner did the voice of Jessica because she was tight with Bob Z because of Romancing the Stone, and when it came time, but she, as I say, she did the voice early before any of the action had been filmed or any of the animation had been done, and nobody really knew if this movie was going to be any good. So she said, "Yeah, I'll do it, but I'm not going to take screen credit. I don't want to be associated with this movie in case it's Howard the Duck." And James Earl Jones did the same thing with Darth Vader in Star Wars.
That's right.
He did the first Star Wars movie and didn't take credit for it because nobody knew if it was going to be any good. And then later on, when it was, he, stepped up. And so Jessica, Kathleen decided that she would do the same thing. So she was going to do it uncredited, and she did the voice. But when it came time to sing the song, she couldn't sing the song. And whether it was because she didn't have breath control because she was pregnant at the time, or whether she just can't sing, I don't know. But Steve Spielberg was in the studio with Amy Irving, who was his wife at the time, and he said, "Hey, Amy," he says, "you sang in Yentl. Why don't you give it a whack?" And I said, "Steve, nobody's going to believe that Jessica has one voice when she sings and a totally different voice when she speaks." And he says, "Nobody will notice." And so Amy Irving stepped up and sang the song. And when you hear Jessica singing the song, that's Amy Irving. And Amy Irving did take credit for it. If you look at the credits, you will see singing voice of Jessica Rabbit, Amy Irving. But no Kathleen Turner. So when the movie premiered, right? The movie premiered at Radio City Music Hall, and in New York City. So I drove down from Boston, and I was sitting in the first balcony, which was the VIP section, and I had never seen the movie all the way through because they were still working on it up to a week before.
So you saw a lot of like the pencil tests.
The rushes.
Oh wow.
Well, no, I mean I saw scenes, and I saw long sections of it, and I saw. I was there for the filming, but I never saw it all put together as a movie, and I had never seen my credit. This was going to be a first for me. I was going to see the whole movie all the way through, and the opening cartoon was still being worked on too. Oh. So I was going to see the whole thing all the way through. Going to see my credit, and for the first time, my credit on a movie screen, and I was sitting in the VIP section, and I had Kathleen Turner on my left. And I had Amy Irving on my right. I'm sitting between two of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life.
You're sitting next to Jessica
and
Rabbit.
I'm going to see my movie and my characters and my credit. And I'm thinking to myself, life just doesn't get any better than that.
and then security removed you from between the two.
And then life got better because Jessica put her hand on my leg.
Oh. Wait, which Jessica?
She leaned over and she whispered in my ear, "Gary, are you excited?" And
I am now.
Said, "Kathleen, you have no idea."
Honestly, this isn't. Honestly, Who Framed Roger Rabbit isn't just a great movie. I think it's a lesson for movie studios in general.
Yeah.
And I really think that movie studios today really need to listen to the lessons of this movie and how it was made and how it was produced and the trials and tribulations to make the movie as it was.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just not just the movie itself, but the story, how it was made that you kind of, you know, tell us about. Maybe this can be a great book to write about the behind the scenes, about what was
Well, somebody already did, actually, Pulling a Rabbit Out of a Hat.
Yeah.
Ross Anderson.
Okay.
And it covers everything from me writing the book to the 5 years in purgatory. It's a pretty good book. You can get it on Amazon.
Something to pick up.
Yeah, somebody did.
Oh, thank you so much for appearing. I mean, this has been kind of I love the movie Roger Rabbit. I love the book. This has just been such a great experience for me. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate
it. It's my pleasure.
You
hey,
so
shameless plug for my website,
Oh,
www.garywolf.com. And I actually just spiffed it yesterday, so it's got a whole bunch of new links. And I've written 3 Toontown novels. There was Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which was the basis for the movie. There was Who Plugged Roger Rabbit,
which I'm reading right now.
In which we standardized on the 4-piece stutter, and then Who Whacked Roger Rabbit, and the Who Censored Roger Rabbit came out as an audio book about a year ago and did so well that they're bringing out the other 2. Who Whacked Roger Rabbit just came out about 2 weeks ago, and Who Plugged is coming out in September. And I'm so happy they're coming out as audio books, because whenever somebody wanted an audio version, they would call me and I would read it to them over the phone.
Oh. Wow.
It saves me a lot of time, you know.
Oh, thank you so much, Gary. It was so.
All right. Hey,
so
and
good
as
talking
an
to you.
outtray, how about if Kevin says goodbye to his creator as Roger Rabbit?
Oh, of course. Oh, Gary, you saved my life, buddy. It was a scam the whole time. Please tell me you'll come back on again, please.
Oh, Roger, for you anything. Roger, for you anything. Thanks, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Gary, I'll send you. I'll make sure you still have the same number, and I'll send you a message because I think there's a show you might be interested in doing because Kathleen Turner's going to be there.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't do shows anymore. I've gotten too old, and the last one I did with Charlie Fleischer, and it just wore me to a frazzle. I just don't have it in me anymore. They wanted me to actually go out on tour with Kathleen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, her and me. She was signing autographs together, but I just anyway send it to me because I'm always interested. I might go over and just say hi to her. It's fun.
You bet.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Have a great night.
It was.
All right,
Yeah.
see ya.
All right, we'll see you.
Good
Take
night.
care. Bye.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, so many great stories I didn't know. I love that. I want to see this footage of the other actors
Murphy.
playing Eddie Valiant.
I'll send you. I'll
Harrison
send you a clip.
Ford.
Harrison Ford. I know, but I knew about the Bill Murray. But when he said that Eddie Murphy got optioned for that, I was like, really? Now that would have been a totally different movie, especially.
It would have been.
Wow.
Roger Rabbit.
Eddie Murphy in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, Roger, get out of here.
Yeah, it would have been a completely different. And Bill Murray pulling off with his, the deadpan Bill Murray.
Oh my god!
I don't think he could have.
I don't think it wouldn't have been right. No, it wouldn't have been right.
No,
He always because he always has like that satirical smirk
I'm
to
still
him that
trying
he
to
would
get
have
over
he would have
Harrison
mugged.
Ford as-
He would have
as
seen
Eddie
the
Valiant.
he would have seen the character and mugged towards the camera and like.
Well, I mean, he was doing movies like Scrooged.
Yeah.
At that
time. That was like this movie that came out in 88.
88, I
It
think.
was like Scrooge, Groundhog's Day. That was like that era of Bill Murray.
And he was a funny actor, but I think at that point in his career, he's kind of like, okay, people are paying me money to do the same thing, so I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. Bob Hoskins, though, man, seriously.
Like I said,
That's
I didn't realize he was British till I saw an interview with him. This was like when the movie came out, because he just had that like great New York accent, and then I saw him, talking Cockney, saying, "I was just trying to tell my kids about this movie. I'm doing it with a rabbit, and they look at me like I'm loopy."
That's right. Yeah, it was that when he said, "Hey,
I am
like
so
I'm loopy."
glad I asked that question about Bob Hoskins. I mean, seriously, those are stories that you
get
don't
a
get.
cookie.
Yeah.
I get a cookie.
And how often do people get on their podcast and can say that they've had, name drops like Robert De Niro or Bobby Z?
Yeah.
So Bob Z and Steve Spielberg,
I was like,
Jeff and Steve, Bobby.
Yeah, just some of the biggest names ever.
And that was just like the height of the '80s, right there, man. Seriously.
Yeah. 1988. It was like that. The movie was like the bridge between like the old animation and the animation to come.
Well, and it shows you that back then a lot of the studios didn't like Roy Disney, but they didn't have a problem with Spielberg coming in.
Or Eisenberg.
Nowadays, I mean, Spielberg was like the golden boy at that point.
Yeah, he could go to Warner Brothers and ask for anything. I mean, he made movies with them, so he could just go in and say, "Can we?" Yeah, no problem.
Can I borrow Bugs Bunny and your firstborn child?
Sure, no problem.
Steven,
you're not like that prick Roy Disney.
Can I? And can I have your wife too?
Sure, Steve. Yeah, go ahead.
Come on, Roger, let's go home. I'll bake you a carrot cake.
I would like to thank our guest Gary K. Wolf for stopping by. His books, Who Censored Roger Rabbit, Who Plugged Roger Rabbit, and Who Whacked Roger Rabbit, are currently available in print, on ebook, and on Audible. You can find out more about Gary on his website, GaryWolf.com, and you can find him on social media. On behalf of Kevin, Jamie, and Andrew, thank you for listening to The Mental Suppository. Until next week, this is Bret Herholtz reminding you to...
Okay, move along. If there's nothing else to see, that's all, folks. I like the sound of that. Yeah, that's all, folks.
Hey there, I'm Scott Graves, founder of SM Graves Associates. Business Triage was designed as a response to the challenges made worse by the global health crisis. It was designed to assist small business beyond the pandemic, since most business issues facing us today were already there, simply made worse by COVID-19. SM Graves Associates is pleased to report that the Business Triage Program has received state funding for immediate implementation. Along with our partners, including Valley Venture Mentors of Springfield, Massachusetts, we are looking for eligible businesses, regardless of their size and industry, and throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Following a rigorous intake session, eligible businesses will receive individualized mentorship, one-on-one by experienced professionals, peer advisory through our custom advisor tribe from Image Identity Limited, and a customized project designed to maximize your business's turnaround as quickly and efficiently as possible. Potential candidates can contact us and find out more about Business Triage by going to smgravesassociates.com/business-triage. We hope to see you soon, and please take care.